We will be shown a man named Phil who is bringing coffee for his colleagues Sharon, Tasha, and Stephen, who are a little arrogant toward Phil.
Take your time. God, I thought you'd gone home.
As seen from his face filled with pressure from his work. They all work at a company that provides steel and aluminum. Phil sees news on his computer about nuclear war, and he asks Stephen if they are very close to nuclear war. But Stephen relies on the British military, which he believes is very strong. Tasha joins in by saying that the news always tries to scare them, even though it is far from happening. Stephen tries to joke with Phil, but Phil doesn't like it. Suddenly, all of their phones ring, announcing that a nuclear bomb has just landed in England.
Jesus! Is this serious?
Mushroom-shaped fire rises, killing the signals and cutting off the electricity. A few seconds later, the shockwave hits them. Office becomes a mess. Sharon is hit by small shards of glass. Stephen tells them to leave quickly. Another explosion happens, forcing them to run to the warehouse, but inside it is dark with no lighting, so they look for candles and take medical supplies. Tasha cannot sit still. She wants to leave, but Phil holds them back from going because they don't know the situation outside. They must wait until it is safe. Phil thinks about the impact of nuclear radiation, suggesting they close the air vents and doors. Stephen disagrees at first, but Sharon scolds Stephen.
Okay, we can seal up the door, keep the fallout. Seal up the doors? We'll all just stop breathing as well, shall we?
Shut up, Steve! He's known more about this than you so far.
From here, we can imagine how terrifying it would be if a nuclear attack happened. When Tasha wants to urinate, Phil doesn't allow her because he believes nuclear radiation has already spread outside. He suggests Tasha use a bucket instead, but Tasha refuses. In situations like this, when all electronics and lights are dead, how valuable a radio would be. But they don't have one. Phil hears something. They put their ears to the door and gunfire can be heard outside. They also hear someone screaming outside, making Phil want to help them. But in this situation, it is better to think of themselves first. Stephen disagrees with Phil's intention to help the person outside. An argument breaks out between Stephen and Phil. Phil rushes outside with only a flashlight. He finds someone lying on the ground named Sab. Phil says he will help him, but Sab's friend Rayon arrives, pointing a gun at Phil. Not long after, a woman asks if Phil has medical supplies. Phil says they have health supplies in the warehouse. Hearing the word "we," Rayon insists on bringing all three of them to where Phil was before. Stephen doesn't like it because they arrive covered in dust and may be carrying radiation. Hearing that, Rayon points his gun at Stephen. The conflict is resolved. Sab suffers a gunshot wound that pierced his back, shot by soldiers. Stephen says that the soldiers don't shoot randomly, that they must all be looters taking advantage of the chaotic situation. Rayan says that it was his right, something they took from the government. They argue until Stephen pushes Rayan down, but Rayan has bad intentions, with a knife hidden in his leg. He stabs Stephen, killing him. Feeling guilty, Rayan's group decides to leave. The woman thanks them and gives a bottle of water in exchange for Stephen's life. Honestly, I am very emotional. Why didn't Phil listen to Stephen? Stephen became the victim because he was stabbed by someone Phil tried to help. Phil blamed Stephen, saying he acted as if he would fight him, but Tasha says it was all Phil's fault because he told them to stay there. The candles are running out. A glimmer of hope appears when someone calls Sharon.
Sharon!
It is George. He tries to evacuate them all, but Phil doesn't want to go. He feels radiation has already eaten away at his body and that his time is running out. Here we will see people who did not prepare anything and people who prepared everything in this nuclear incident. Chris and his small family live in England. He often sees news about geopolitical tensions that could lead to nuclear war. Chris and his small family have prepared everything: arrows, radiation suits and masks. He even made an air circulation system for his bunker in case of a nuclear attack. While they are eating together, Chris tells his daughter Sarah not to play with her tablet. He takes it and places it above, but suddenly a nuclear notification appears. They immediately secure themselves by entering the room they had prepared. Not long after, an explosion occurs. Chris sees from the window a mushroom cloud rising high into the sky, so he must shut off all the air vents. They spend their time inside the house safely with food supplies secured and electricity generated from a device they pedal. Sarah develops a sore throat, but they don't have medicine, so Chris plans to go out and find medicine at his workplace. He now wears a full anti-radiation suit to minimize exposure to radiation. He roams the empty city filled with radiation. Now Chris arrives at his workplace, taking medicine and also a radio for precaution, not forgetting the office car he often uses to make it easier to travel. Two robbers see this and intend to rob Chris, but luckily Chris survives and manages to bring home the medicine and the radio to find out future information. When listening to the radio, it turns out many major cities in England were affected by the nuclear attack. His wife suggests they go north, but Chris refuses because they have plenty of food and water at home. They will guard their house while waiting for help. They can leave the house, but must wear masks to stay safe. Two robbers are seen wandering, intending to loot Chris's house. One of the robbers tells Chris to open his door, but Chris isn't that foolish. One robber breaks Chris's window. He enters, but Chris is ready with his bow. Still, the robber advances even though he was warned, so Chris shoots him. Not long after, his partner arrives and hits Chris, but luckily his wife defeats the second robber as well. They clean up the mess. In this situation, people who are not prepared will burden others, draining them. People will act like animals just to survive. That is the wrong mindset. Instead, we should prepare things far in advance. Meanwhile, on the other side, we will see a man named Paul with his small family running toward the bunker they own. He spends time with his family inside the bunker, using the radio every day to exchange messages with his friend John. One day, when everything seems normal without any war, Paul offers his wife and child a holiday on a cruise ship. Meanwhile, he will repair his bunker just in case a nuclear attack ever happens. But one day, Paul receives news that two cruise ships collided, causing casualties, including his two loved ones. All he does every day now is take shelter in the bunker and tell his friend John over another radio channel that Paul is in denial. He upgrades his bunker, prepares food for his family, but they are all gone. Now, Paul is alone. Because of that, Paul decides to go north to help in any way he can for his beloved country.